Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto Was Saved, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. This time use, the alto familiar voice rings through the forest, and then the shadows come to life forming into spikes. They bombard the three people who were huddled together, K them, if they were slower that is. The three of them had dodged to the right, the last one out, Naruto, receiving AC on the side of his shoulder. The sound of laughter warns them of the next attack, much like the first spikes made out of shadows attack them. In the confusion, Hinata slips away into the shadows, casting a genjutsu. She waits for him to mess up, or even just show himself, knowing Naruto and Haku can fend off his attacks. Dodge, block, watch, repent, the thoughts echoing through Naruto's head. He must stay alive, his enemy would mess up soon, wouldn't he? Needles are suddenly flying through the air only to be blocked by the very shadows that were attacking. The shadow seems to growl. The humanoid form moves from its position, disappearing again into the forest. Even more spikes are created and launch at the two humans who are already busy fending off the shadows. Naruto and Haku can barely keep up with all of the attacks. Many small C make themselves noticed on their skin and clothes. Growling in frustration, Naruto does a bunch of unseals and then says, Futen, K's Nankan no Jutsu, wind barrier. The winds around him and Haku sprung to life in a circling motion. Three separate spirals were formed, the sides extending to the wall which wasn't far away. All of the shadow spikes hit the barrier and are tossed away, some sucked into the center only to be eradicated. Now the humanoid shadow growls in frustration. Damn brat, it says, the senses a punch and dodges to the right. He looks over to see none other than Hinata charging at him. So that's where that bee went. He smirks. His revenge is at hand. Hinata's hand extends fully 3 feet away. The shadow grabs her hand and spins he into a nearby tree, destroying it in the process. Hinata coughs up some bee, but, as quickly as she can, looks for her enemy with her Byakugan standing up so she more ready for an attack. As she reaches he full height, the shadow appears in front of her, punching her in the gut, making her cough up even more bee. He pay back time bee, it says, punching her head and it into the wall, making a huge dent in the wall. Team, Naruto's voice says, then appearing next to Hinata and the shadow, Naruto throws out his hand, which happens to have a swirling ball in it, to his head only to have it caught. You won't explode that when she here will you. He gloats, not seeing her disappearance. The ball explodes, much to his surprise. He is then hit in the face, sent a few feet back and paralyzed, unable to move. Haku takes this time to check on Hinata and start to heal some of her wounds. Gomen Hinata-chan, Haku says, mad at herself for not getting there sooner, her hands glowing from the medical jutsu trying to speed up her healing so, if nothing else, she can hide herself again. Just then Naruto flies by them and through a couple of trees, followed by the shadow. Naruto hits the ground and intently jumps up, eyes glowing red, snarling as he catches the fist that was aimed at him. Naruto sent a fist to the shadow. Even though it was blocked, it was sent back all the way to the wall and making a huge indent. In the next moment a fist is in the wall, shattering it even more, and the humanoid shadow is gone, replaced by multiple shadow spikes, all of which hit Naruto, who screams out in pain. Ha, annoying brat. Finally, the shadow says, walking out of he just found hiding spot. Now the rest of you, why? He adds, only to be see off by a hand to his a clawed hand. How dare you? Haku says in a fully demonic voice, her teeth sharper and bigger than normal and distinct red demonic eye. Screaming, he looks down. He expects it to be Haku's, but it twisted off to the right and he sees the other female, also with demonic red eyes and surprisingly pupils. I'll kill you, Hinata yells, letting off even more red demonic chakra, reviling something that only sort of resembles a human. His body is covered in fur, wolf ears pointing out of his head and deep green eyes. He was crouching. What the F are you? He says, looking at them in fear. He receives no answer, only a blow to the head, sending him straight through the wall, hitting the barrier on the other side. The two Jinchuriki tear the wall up, just trying to get to him. As they near him, he falls out the other side of the wall. The time was up. Hachibi pins all three of them with cage buncheons. Seems I chose the right place. Where is Naruto? Hachibi says, walking over the rubble of the wall. I have them all, call of your search. Hachibi says over the radio. He's then tackled by a person. Ha 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 hachibi, you are a fool. As weak and pathetic as ever, QB laughs, his body totally different. No longer was his hair blonde, but rather be red, falling over his face completely unkempt. He was easily 6 feet 4, much bigger than Naruto, and instead of his usual shirt non-existent showing off his well-defined muscles, his pants be red and a long, white sword on his belt, which was be black. QB walked over to Hachibi, kicking off the clones one by one, letting the prisoners free. So how do you want to s? QB return to the seal or I'll seal you fully, Hachibi says, standing up, only to have QB knee him in the stomach. And just how do you expect to do that? QB asks, laughing at Hachibi, who is on the ground trying to regain his breath. Like this, Hachibi says, unleashing his full power, making everyone but QB fall to the ground unable to do anything, and then appearing in front of QB only to have a fist to the face. You'll have to move faster than that, QB taunts, starting to laugh again. I thought by now you would have increased your skills. You were always a faster leaner, and just by staying in that seal you gain more power than I could train in a week every day. That's the only reason you agreed to it, Hachibi says, standing up, his in face healing itself. QB laughs again. Of course I'm not stupid like you, I wouldn't just blindly follow my Aoshu's orders. QB smirks, appearing behind Hachibi, he knees him in his spine, breaking it and sending him flying. Appearing in front of Hachibi, QB drops a fist on his head, shattering his skull. He falls 10 feet into the earth. Haku and Hinata appear beside QB, still demonic, and throw a fist at him simultaneously only to have them grabbed and then their BS together, knocking them both out. Don't K them, Hachibi says, now rolling over to his back to see what was happening, knowing full well he can't stand. I'm not that idiotic, besides I feel everything the kid does, QB says. He brings his foot up and drops it in an X kick into Hachibi's C, shattering all of his ribs and sending him another 20 feet in the ground. I'll just take out my anger on you since you're not going to S anytime soon. I don't suggest hitting me again, I need to heal still from your first attack, Hachibi says, a little concerned that QB is too out of control. Fine, since Sanbi and Gobi are here, why don't I have some more fun? QB asks, turning to where they were hiding. He laughs, appearing beside them. Don't you dare, Hachibi says, trying to get up and stop him only to feel like he was and then falling back down, breathing heavily. Ha ha ha, and what are you going to do to stop me? QB asks, lashing out, 2 fists hitting both of the demons in the side of the face, shattering their jaw and all bones on that side of their head and ripping apart the tree just by the sheer force. QB appears behind Gobi and hits her in the side of the rib cage, shattering all of her left ribs and throwing her towards Sanbi, who got the same treatment only on the other side. They hit each other. All the bones that were on that side were no longer in existence. You're even weeker than hachibi. QB shouts, appearing in the middle of his destruction. All of the trees within 10 miles are either knocked down, destroyed, or only half up just by the sheer power emanating from his vassal. Damn kid, he can even fight me. QB says, laughing. I like his spunk, he adds with a snarl, because he was losing this battle. Oh well, I've had my fun. QB thinks. Wait, QB, Hachibi says, now managing to sit up, did you teach him Rasengan? And that technique? Of course it was me, do you think anyone else would? I like those techniques, it's a pity my host is so stupid, can't even unlock Tuff's memories, QB says before letting his body fade away, leaving nothing but darkness. Soon Naruto's body appeared in his stead and then his body collapses. After such an experience his consciousness had little will left to say awake. Gogumen na nasai, Naruto says to everyone, crawling very slowly to Hinata and Haku. He wanted to be near them, make them feel better after what QB just did. Even though he knows the demons got the worst of the beating, he knew they would be okay, both mentally and physically, for when there is that much of the QB's chakra rushing out of his body that the QB was in control, and their huge healing rates ensured their B to be fine. Naruto, don't feel bad, no one could have suppressed him so soon, Hachibi says, for he had the most time to heal. He was the first to be able to talk again, and soon he would even be able to walk. But the Anbu arrived at this time. What the hell happened here? The Anbu captain asks, his underlings restraining the werewolf, who was once covered in shadows. QB, was all Gobi needed to say, sitting against one of the only still standing trees, with hands glowing, healing Sanbi, who was lying on her lap. Sanbi is the third weakest demon, yet she took as much if not more damage than Gobi. By QB's special technique made for K demons, She was unconscious, unable to stay awake from the pain and limiting her healing abilities, which are already weakened by the technique. Serena, Hachibi says, walking over to her, prematurely causing him more pain and damage to himself, but all that mattered right now was Sanbi. He starts hand seals slowly and finishes them. As he gets to Sanbi, his hand also start to glow. Damn it, Kyubi. Why didn't you listen? Why did you use even that technique on her too? Hachibi thinks. Very concerned there might be permanent damage, he drops down next to Sanbi and adds his healing to Gobi's. Who is Serena? The Anbu captain says, obvious to what was going on, he was preparing to take the kids to the hospital, not knowing anything that happened. He wanted to make sure that they were okay, and the demons looked as though they could handle themselves. Idiotic humans, you think demons don't have names too? Serena is my mate, Sanbi, Hachibi says coldly. He despised humans sometime, they were always so stupid, but he didn't think they were that stupid to believe the demons just go by the les that they gave them. That was absurd. Jumping to conclusions isn't always the best thing to do. You only ever use the les that our ancestors so long ago gave you. It's not surprising that most humans think those are your names, the Anbu captain says back, a lot more professional than he had ever sounded on this mission. Whatever, I know you thought that. I can almost read your thoughts, you make them so obvious. Hachibi spits back, detest obvious in his voice. He then shuts out all further comments and puts his full attention on healing Sanbi. Za, Ki, Ma, Ru, Sanbi, who just regained consciousness, said, trying with all her might to grab a hold of him. Serena, Hachibi says, wincing as a new pain jolts through his system. He turns off his jutsu, he brushes his hand across her face. I'm here, please don't strain yourself. Morning of the day of the Chunin exams. 3 people in 3 separate beds, which are completely white, as well as the room that they are in, are sleeping peacefully. Obvious to the commotion of the Chunin exams, a solitary person is standing at the foot of the middle bed, a gouge that is almost bigger than him on his back. One of the people sleeping starts to move, groaning as he sits up. Gara, Naruto says, looking down his bed at said person standing there, what are you doing here? I came to check up on you, it's been a while since we've really talked or anything, Gara responds. He then looks towards the window and walks up to it, and I heard the Kyubi escaped. Yeah, Naruto says, suddenly very depressed. He could have K-sensei. I doubt that would have happened. The Kyubi is smart enough to know that Hachibi will be needed as well as everyone else. Mainus Jinchuriki, Gara tries to comfort him in his odd way. Yeah, but they said he was gaining a lot of power every day, just for being sealed. It isn't often that you find Naruto depressed, but when he does get pushed over that edge, it would take more than simple reasoning to push him back. He must prove to not only himself but to everyone, that whatever has happened, won't hold him down, nor would it happen again. But this time, it was the Kyubi he had to suppress. With such a strong foe in both physical and mental power, it would not be an easy task to accomplish. Unless the Kyubi can gain as much power as Mayoshu-sama, which I doubt can happen, then he will need help fighting off the enemy that awaits us. I do not believe even now that all of the demon together could even stand a chance against Mayoshu. If he was younger, that is. Gara always saw the logical point of view. Mayoshu was almost as old as time itself, and his power vast even in comparison to his demons, but in his old and weakened state he would have trouble fighting even one of them. Gara, Naruto says. He is now out of his bed and walking towards him. Thank you for trying to help, but it won't work. Naruto finishes. He is now standing beside Gara, looking out the window, surprised that he could see the whole village. I understand, Gara says. He turns around and starts to walk towards the door. The Chunin exams will start sometime soon. I suggest that you wake him up and go to the starting place. He finishes as he steps outside the door and walks away. Kyubi, why? Why did you do that? I will not allow you to take over again. Naruto thinks to himself, or so he believes, but the Kyubi heard everything he had said. Ha 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 ha, you don't have a choice, boy, I can overpower you any day, the Kyubi roared at him. Ignoring the demon, he walks over to Hinata and gently shakes her. Hinata's eyes slowly open and she sees Naruto's blue eyes glowing back at her. He smiles, happy that Kyubi is no longer in control. Naruto-kun, Hinata says. She springs up and hugs him. Her minor injuries healed long ago. I'm so glad you're alive. She adds, the last this she had saw was him getting impaled by the shadows, and then Kyubi just appeared and started beating down everyone. Yeah, I'm fine, but, are you? Naruto asks. He could easily run a medical scan jutsu and see if she was fine, but that wasn't his style, and besides he was more worried about mental injuries, considering he saw what Kyubi did to them in comparison to what he did to Hachibi, and they had their demons added healing rate right. I'm great, especially now that I know you're okay, Hinata says happily snuggling into Naruto. Naruto-kun. The just conscious Haku says, making both Naruto and Hinata look over to her, you're alive. Of course you think someone like him can stop me. Naruto says with a fake cheeriness, which both of the girls caught but destined to ignore it for now. How? Haku asks curious of what had happened that they didn't see. I'll tell you on the way to the Chunin exam, Naruto says, concerned they wouldn't make it on time. Hinata and Haku agreed to this and quickly got everything they needed before they went with Naruto, who then started his story. Flashback. A deafening scream sounded throughout the forest, coming from a blonde boy whose body looked like it was completely eradicated. Holes ranging from the size of a finger to the size of a basketball were scattered all around his body. The only thing that could identify him was his hair and his eyes. Nothing else was left whole enough to even figure out if he'd been a guy or a girl. Darkness consumed his consciousness, quickly followed by the sound of dripping water. Opening his eyes, Naruto saw a sewer, many doors in every which way but few of them one could see past the entrees, clouded over almost like a long-forgotten memory, something never to be seen again, a faint red glow coming from a room far off in the distance. Where am I? Naruto asks, standing up from the fallen position he had went after the attack. He starts following the light, knowing that the Kyubi's demonic chakra was red. He was curious as to what was so powerful that a red glow could be seen even this far. As he walks into the door of which the glow is coming from, it turns into a full-blown light, making the room as bright as the sun, only instead of a happy yellowish color, it was an ominous red. Naruto looks around. The room was huge. The demon fox in his true form could fit in it. Then he notices the cage with the paper with kanji for seal on it. Behind the seal was pitch black. Ah, so you have finally come. The Kyubi's voice echoes throughout the room. That pathetic Hachibi know how to teach. A man walks up to the bars of the cage. Red slitted eyes gazed at Naruto, the rest of Kyubi's body barely visible. The demon smiled maliciously, fangs protruding to the bottom of his mouth which looked like it grew almost 10 inches. Anyways, are you ready? It's about time I healed your body. But what? Naruto says, not scared of the demon, knowing he is the one in control, not the Kyubi. The seal ensured that it will come at price. The Kyubi's grin, if it even possible, became even more devious. I will get control until I feel like giving it back to you, he finishes. As this happens, the cage starts to rattle. Our unnatural heat kicks up, making Naruto intently start sweating. The Kyubi starts laughing. He swipes his claws against the cage, shattering the seal and making the cage swing open. You have no choice, Kyubi shouts, and then a cage surrounds Naruto, 3 seals appearing on it, stopping his attempts to break out. Now I am the master and your body is mine. Team. Naruto shouts at him, what the hell did you do? Naruto attacks the cage and tries to take off the seals, but it was all in vain. A Rasengan then springs to life in his right hand. He throws it at the back of the seal, but it has no effect. Don't bother, if I could only get this far after 16 years, you won't get out ever, Kyubi says, laughing maniacally, his body starting to fade until it was only Naruto, who is still inside of the cage. In the forest where Naruto fell from his injuries, the body's eyes shoot open, all of his wounds healing quickly. He stands up and looks around. The forest was in pretty good shape, but the wall was torn completely, a huge chunk of it missing. Enjoy the view, kid, Kyubi thinks to Naruto before jumping across the wall. Flashback end. Haku, Hinata and Naruto are now standing outside of the academy, which the Chunin exams were being held in. Hinata and Haku holding on to Naruto with sadness in their eyes. After hearing his story, they were surprised that he was still going to do the exam. He had been so depressed because of what Kyubi did, and now with this new information, Haku and Hinata both would still be at home, recovering mentally. Naruto, Gaara says, walking up behind them, you made it even before me, he adds, looking behind him. His 2 other teammates are still arguing. Gaara sighs, this was going to be a long exam. Gaara. Naruto shouts, a fake happiness in his voice unnoticed by all but Haku, Hinata, and surprisingly Gaara, I told you we would make it here on time. How are these idiots? Hanabi says, coldly turning away from Sasuke. Hinata intently turn around, that voice her sister she was testing for Chunin. How's this brat? Haku says, looking over at her. Hanabi's eyes were nearly emotionless, but not in the way Gaara's were. There was a distinct hate and, I'm better than you, look to her eyes, but at this time there was more irritation in her eyes. I am the Hyuga heiress, watch your mouth or I'll have your head. Hanabi hated when they looked down on her. She was clearly a Hyuga and being the only child of Hiashi means she has no seal and that was obvious. You think some stupid la mean anything to me? Haku says, starting to dislike this stuck-up child. She was 4 years younger than her. And yet she still thinks that she can beat Haku. Hanabi just glares at Haku, who stares at her. Eventually Hanabi gives up and walks into the door behind them. Gaara and Sasuke soon follow and then Haku, Naruto, and Hinata, who stay well away from Hanabi and Sasuke and Gaara in the process. Haku, Hinata and Naruto look over to where there's a group of people gathered, 2 people standing guard refusing all entries into room 301, they smirk. There was a genjutsu up, this is only room 201. It had been 10 minutes, still plenty of time until the exam started, and no one had yet to unmask the genjutsu. Many teams had left thinking the exam was just a hoax, but Naruto's team was getting annoyed. As such the genjutsu was gone. Compliments of Hinata. Few people released who did this and most didn't care, they were just happy the exam was going to start. Oddly enough the guards turned and ran when they saw the Illinoisan disappear, not wanting to be in the path of the angry genin when they charged through the door. Impressive, someone behind Naruto, Hinata and Haku says, making them all turn around to see a male Hyuga, a girl with all sorts of different scrolls, and a guy in green spandexes. To remove the genjutsu and still attract as little attention as you did, the Hyuga added, as he was the first speaker. I'm surprised, a Hyuga talking to us. To what do we owe the honor? Naruto says sarcastically, Hyugas are well known for thinking no one is better than they are and rarely talk to anyone that does not start it, and even then they finish it as soon as possible. HMP, I didn't talk to you, do not talk to me, the Hyuga responds. He points to Hinata, this girl is who I talk to, do not answer for her. Neji, shut up, Hinata says darkly, surprising her teammate and Neji's team. These 3 have nearly never been seen, their names are unknown and yet this girl spoke his name so freely. We're leaving, Hinata adds, turning away and walking to the door. Her teammates not arguing, just follow her, they would extract the information from her later. As they arrive at the massive door that leads to the waiting room of the first exam, they meet up with Gaara and his team who were there before they arrived, but just as all of them were ready to go and Kakashi appears. Yo, he says, smiling in his weird way, I'm glad you all made it here, I was kind of worried you wouldn't make it on time. Naruto, Hinata, Haku, how was your time in the forest? It could have been better, Haku responds in a solemn voice. She reaches out to Hinata and Naruto wanting some comfort. Did you not receive the reports, Kakashi? Gaara asks, still just staring forward. No, actually, they seem to have been lost in the main, said person retorts, laughing nervously. Whatever, let's just get on with this, Sasuke says. The sooner the exam finishes, the sooner he can get this Hyuga brat away from him. Since all 6 of you arrived, no one needs to be refused entrees, Kakashi says, smiling stupidly again. Go on in. With that he disappears in a puff of smoke. The remaining people pushed open the door, revealing a huge room with many people sitting at the tables in chairs that were set out. Shugoi, Hinata says, amazed by the number of people that showed up for the event. Even though she half expected there to be a lot of people, it was still amazing that so many people were here. Gaara and his team leave Hinata, Haku, and Naruto in favor of finding a spot to sit and relax for a while, hopefully in peace. Haku, Hinata, and Naruto quickly follow their example, but their destination was a far different area. As they sit down, the 2 other rookie teams enter the room. They had much the same reaction as Hinata. They stared at the massive amounts of people until a huge ringing of steel hitting steel was heard throughout the building. On the other side of the room, wall a few minutes back. Hey, it's about time to start this thing, Ibiki says, standing in front of a door with his Chunin examiners behind him. He was about to open the door once someone's voice stopped him. Let me, Ibiki, the dry voice of Hachibi says. Looking back, Ibiki saw the person who was not there before, a full black robe with its hood over his head covering his face in shadows, a scythe on his back. Very well, go ahead, Ibiki responds. At this the cloaked figure snakes a hand behind his back, grabs his scythe and flips it around while bringing it to the front of his body. He grabs the scythe with his other hand and it into the ground. A large sound that could be heard from miles away started up. Somewhere in the process, Ibiki and the Chunin through the doors and shouted at the genin. Hachibi steps through the door, radiating intent. If it was scary you wanted, he thinks. Looking up, he searches for the Jinchuriki. Finding him easily, he walks towards Ibiki. Alright you punks, listen up, I am your first examiner Morino Abiki. Abiki shouts. Now nearly all of the genin are shaking in fear. Not only is there this man with oh so many scars, but death was trailing him. I am a special examiner, I will follow you throughout the exam, so don't even think about cheating, he says, smirking under his hood. Abiki then went about explaining the test, the rules, the no cheating aspect and such. They all then pick out a number from a box and cite it accordingly in another room. The test papers were handed out shortly after. The question were absurdly hard. Why would a shinobi need to know this theory? Of course Haku, Hinata, Naruto, and Gaara all figured out you were supposed to cheat. Luck for Naruto, who has no ability to sneak answers or anything under a watchful gaze. Hinata was sitting next to him and she could cast a genjutsu that would hide everyone in the room with only one hand seal. Of course a disappearing act would be noticed, so she dared to manipulate the light's reflections. With such an act one could think she was moving at the speed of light. Her image was back at her desk, but she was on Naruto's lap filling in the answers she got with scanning the room with her Byakugan. Of course she could have done this with her paper first, but she would rather be as close to Naruto as possible. Maybe I should visit Haku-chan, Hinata wonders. She quietly walks back to her chair and fills in the answers she had gathered so far before walking to Haku. The only flaw in her plan is the fact that she could make sound while walking, but unless someone who was better at genjutsu than her was there, they would never dispel this illusion. Hachibi smirks as he enters the room. So you went to this extent? He thinks, looking past her illusion, and sees Hinata sitting on Haku's lap now, not really needing to fill in the answers, just there because she wanted to be, but that ends when she hears Hachibi step forward. Her eyes go wide and fear is evident in them. He isn't supposed to be here. Everything is going to fall apart. Hinata started to panic, but just as he passes her she sees him smile. It wasn't his place to uncover such an advanced genjutsu. Only a Anbu-level genjutsu specialist would find her. Gaara used his own skills. A small genjutsu and his third eye technique was all that was needed, and soon enough he found a Chunin discus to take the answers from. Sasuke used his Sharingan and Hanabi her Byakugan when they figured out the real purpose of the test. The exam was relatively boring, for almost were hoping for the end. A few teams were eliminated, more like a quarter. Soon the time was up and Abiki started talking. Okay, it's time for the 10th question, he boomed. Hinata quickly ran back to her set and undid the genjutsu. But first you must decide whether or not to take it. If you don't take it, you and your team fail, but if you do take it and don't get the right answer, you can never become a Chunin, doomed to the lure of genin for your entire life. What? Many people said. That's not fair. There have been people who took this test before, one of the braver students said. Well then you're just unlucky that you go me as your examiner. Abiki says, not faltering either slightest, and the death stepped up beside him. Raise your hands if you wish not to take the question, Hachibi says in a dry, bored voice, seeming as if he just wants to get this over with. Many people raised their hands. Over half of the teams left before no one else were hesitating. Okay then, Abiki says, you all pass. As if to break the mood totally, Anko chose that second to fly through the window and threw out the paper sort of thing she was wrapped in with kunais behind it to hold it in place. Hello, I, Mitarashi Anko, will be your examiner for the second part of the exam. She shouts, making most of the kids fall in a classic anime style. Now follow me to the back of the building. Damn woman doesn't know how to grasp the mood. Abiki thinks after all he had done she breaks his perfect ambience setting in a flash. Oh well, he was no longer the examiner anyways, she can do what she wants. Have fun Abiki, Hachibi says, ripping off his cloak and throwing it in a random direction. I'll be following him through the forest, he adds, starting to walk away. Don't interfere unless neck. Abiki starts only to be see off, but Hachibi. I know, you don't need to tell me. He ignores all father comments, which were not made, and when he reaches the field he finds Anko in the middle of explaining the exam and the waiver forms that they all have to sign. The scrolls have been handed out, the teams lined up, the waiver forms filled out. Now there was only one thing to do, wait. In 1 minute the fair will be sent, the gates opened, and the exam started. 5 days to accomplish their goals. Only half would survive. The tension was high. Anticipation grew, changing form become anxiety. The time slowly ticked away. Nearly there was 20 seconds, only 15, 15 more. Number 10, 10 seconds, 7, 6, 5. All of the genin crouched ready to spring into action, preparing for the long days ahead. 4, 3, 2. these leg muscles moved on their own, launching into the air as the fare was sent up. They charged through the gates into the forest of death and the waiting jaws of the second exam. Easily an hour later, we find Naruto, Hinata, and Haku sitting in the highest tree branches they could manage, peacefully resting. After the advanced forest, something like this wouldn't be a problem, especially since there are fewer creatures the higher up you go. Hinata-chan. Naruto adds, trying to add to the tension and make her answer. Naruto is standing, or rather kneeling horizontally out from the tree just above Hinata, looking down on her. Well, Hinata stutters, biting her lip. It's just, Neji is so much like father. Now, it bothers me that he could do that. It's not really Neji that I'm mad at. It's Otu-san. Neji is basically his now. Hinata's eyes start to cloud over as she looks down, tears starting to form in her eyes. Why did I ever want to come back here? She screams at herself, falling into a deeper depression. Hinata-chan, Naruto says. He pulls her head up and stands on his legs, still stuck to the tree, leaning over so his face was upside down in front of hers. Instead of crying, instead of feeling bad, use your feelings, your power from your training, change what you don't like. Let's free Neji and all other Hyugas together, he adds, smiling slightly. Me too, Haku says, wiggling under Naruto's head to look at Hinata. Let's all do this together. We can do it. First we should Heihachi. Haku trails off, thinking of all the things she needed to plan. No, Hinata says, breaking out of her depression, surprising all of them. Let's do this my way. Let's not K unnecessarily, please. Her eyes were slightly wider than normal, a faint red tinge, and the cutest face she could put on. This knocked both of them out of their pervious thoughts. All they could manage to do was stare. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.